Hello, geometry. So with these ones, because of COVID this year, I just want you to be familiar with these, all right? I'm not going to ask you to know them exactly, but I want you to be familiar with what they are and what they look like. So the first one is rotations, all right? A rotation is when you turn the figure around a fixed point. And the fixed point we call the center of rotation. The most common fixed point is the origin, all right? The origin, which is, of course, right here at 0, 0. The figures are rotated at a specific angle and a direction. Now, we could rotate them any angle. We could do 30, 15, 97, right? We could do any angle. We have some that we typically use, though, and that would be 90, 180, and then 270. Those are the typical angles that we use. And we always do it in a counterclockwise motion. Okay, so we do it to the right. Or to the left, to the left. Dyslexia kicking in there. So you can see here, we're rotating this. Here's our pre-image, triangle ABC, and then our image is A prime, B prime, C prime. So we rotated it, and this one rotated 90 degrees. All right, that was a 90-degree rotation. All right, 90-degree rotation. Rotations are a rigid motion. Okay, so the length, angle, and measures of the pre-image and image are congruent. All right, they are congruent. I'm not going to tell you what the tricks are. All right, I don't want you to necessarily know those, but I want you to be able to look at these and say, okay, here's my image. I'm rotating it from my pre-image to my image. So that was a 90 degrees counterclockwise. 180 is really when it goes from being like this to being like that, right? It rotates. And then the last one here is a 270. So we just rotated it like this, right? We went from there to there. And then for this one, we went from there to there. So my arrows kind of show us how we rotated it. So that's rotations. I want you to be able to recognize them, all right? You need to recognize that if you see this, okay, a rotation happened, all right? Dilation is the next one. All right, dilation is the next one. So a dilation is, and you do this all the time if you ever do like a photography class, yearbook, anything like that. A dilation is an enlargement or a shrink, right? You enlarge it or you shrink it. You do one or the other to it. And a dilation, put this in like bright pink, something is not a rigid motion. Okay, that means that your pre-image and your image are not congruent. And looking at this, you can just see, right? You can see that triangle ABC is not congruent to triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. Now, what is congruent is the angles, all right? So that means that angle A is congruent to angle A prime. And angle B is congruent to angle B prime. And angle C is congruent to angle C prime. That is true. These are congruent. All right. The sides are proportional. The sides are proportional. So that means that the length of AB, and I'll try and write this right here. So AB over A prime B prime is going to equal CB over C prime B prime, which is going to equal AC over A prime C prime. All right, so those ratios will all be the same. That's what it means by proportional. And we'll get more into this when we start studying triangles in chapter 5. So you don't need to worry too much about that, but I want you to recognize a dilation occurred, all right? And you need to know the angles are the same, the sides are not. The angles are the same, the sides are not. And then, and to see if there was anything else. Nope, that was it. So that's all we're going to talk about in terms of transformations. I do want to remind you that there are 4 different transformations. I'm going to grab them, I think. Because now I can't find my paper because I have too many papers. There we go. All right, so I do want to remind you there are 4 types of transformations. Translations, which we have looked at thoroughly. You should be able to translate pretty much anything and write rules for translations. Reflections, you should be able to find the line of reflection and reflect figures across lines of reflection. Rotations, you should recognize. All right, rotations you should recognize. And this is going the wrong direction. Silly. It goes that way. And then dilations, right? Dilations. You should be able to know what a pre-image and what an image are. And you should be able to do glide reflections because those are translations with reflections, right? So those are the 4 types. You should be able to recognize all of them, and you should be able to do these first 2 for sure. All right? Email me if you have any questions. I am happy to help.